Chapter 6, The Rise of Ancient Greece. Section 1, The Rise of Greek Civilization. Objectives: 1. Understand how Greece's geographic setting influenced the development of Greek civilization. 2. Examine early Greek history. 3. Examine the development of democracy in Greece. Key terms: peninsula, an area of land nearly surrounded by water. Epic, a long poem that tells a story. Acropolis, a high rocky hill where early people built cities. City-state, a city with its own traditions, government, and laws, both a city and a separate independent state. Aristocrat, a member of a rich and powerful family. Tyrant, a ruler who takes power with the support of the middle and working classes. Democracy, a form of government in which citizens govern themselves. Page 168. First there was nothing, then came Mother Earth. The gods of night and day appeared next, and then the starry sky. Earth and sky created the 12 Titans. These great gods rebelled against their father Sky and took away his power. The youngest of the Titans, Kronos, ruled in his father's place. In time, Kronos had 6 children. The youngest, mighty Zeus, toppled Kronos from his throne. With such stories, the people of ancient Greece described the struggles of their gods. Like their gods, the people of Greece had to struggle for power and independence. Their struggles began with the land itself. Greece's geographic setting. Page 169. The land of Greece looks as if the sea had smashed it to pieces. Some pieces have drifted away to form small rocky islands. Others barely cling to the mainland. Greece is a country made up of peninsulas. A peninsula is an area of land surrounded by water on 3 sides. Look at the map titled Ancient Greece. As you can see, no part of Greece is very far from the sea. Mountains are the major landform of Greece. Greece's islands are mostly mountain peaks. Mountains wrinkle the mainland, so there are only small patches of farmland. Only about 1/5 of Greece is good for growing crops. No wonder the Greeks became traders and sailors. At times they left Greece to found colonies far away. What was life like for people living in Greece 3,000 years ago? In a way, the ancient Greeks were all islanders. Some lived on real islands, completely surrounded by water, or on small peninsulas. Others lived on what could be thought of as land islands. Instead of water, mountains separated these small communities from one another. The geography of Greece made it hard for people from different communities to get together. For this reason, it is no surprise that ancient Greek communities thought of themselves as separate countries. Each one developed its own customs and beliefs. Each believed its own land, traditions, and way of life were the best. And each was more than ready to go to war to protect itself. In fact, for most of their history, the Greeks were so busy fighting among themselves that it is easy to forget that they shared a common heritage, spoke the same language, and worshipped the same gods. Reading check. What do we mean when we say the ancient Greeks were all islanders? Page 170. Greek beginnings. Early Greek civilization arose on and off the Greek mainland. 2 ancient peoples, the Minoans and the Mycenaeans, made an important impact on Greek history. Minoan civilization. From about 3000 to about 1100 BC, Bronze Age people called the Minoans lived on the island of Crete. Washed by the waters of the Aegean and Mediterranean seas, Crete was an ideal place for the Minoans to develop a broad sea trade network. Mainland Greece and other Greek islands, as well as Egypt and Sicily, traded with the Minoans, who at one time dominated the Aegean. Archaeological finds show that the Minoans had developed a vibrant culture. Samples of Minoan writing have been found on thousands of clay tablets. A grand palace once stood in the ancient Crete city of Knossos. Palace ruins hint at rooms once covered with fanciful wall paintings. Various statues found within suggest that the Minoans worshipped goddesses. In the middle of the 1400s BC, Knossos was destroyed, and Minoan civilization declined. People from mainland Greece, the Mycenaeans, were the likely invaders. Page 171. The Mycenaeans. After the Mycenaeans came into power, mainland and island cultures blended. However, the focus of these cultures moved to the mainland, where the city of Mycenae was located. At the height of their power, around 1400 BC, the Mycenaeans controlled the Aegean Sea and parts of the Mediterranean. Like the Minoans, the Mycenaeans also used writing. Studies of the Mycenaean script show that they spoke an early form of modern Greek. The Minoans had gained much of their power through trade. Although the Mycenaeans traded widely, they relied upon conquest to spread their power. The Trojan War. Greek myth tells the story of the Trojan War, a long struggle between Greece and the city of Troy on the west coast of Asia Minor, in present-day Turkey. It's possible that Mycenaean warriors inspired this legend. According to the myths, the Greeks conquered Troy by using a trick, the Trojan horse. Greek warriors hid inside a huge wooden horse. The horse was rolled to the city gates. Thinking it was a gift, the Trojans brought the horse into their city. During the night, the Greek soldiers climbed out of the horse and let the rest of their army into Troy. The Greeks burned and looted Troy and then returned home. 2 epics, or long storytelling poems, about the Trojan War survive today. They are the Iliad and the Odyssey. These epics have been composed by many people, but they are credited to a poet called Homer. The poems were important to the Greeks. They taught them what their gods were like and how the noblest of their heroes behaved. Today, people think these poems came from stories memorized by several poets and passed down by word of mouth through many generations. Homer may have been the last and greatest in this line of poets who told about the Trojan War. Most historians agree that the Trojan War did not happen exactly as Homer described it. Some believe that Homer's epics were inspired by a long battle between the Greeks and Trojans, but others argue that the epics were inspired by a series of minor battles. Troy was destroyed by a large fire in the mid-1200s BC, an act that some historians believe may have been committed by invaders from Greece. Reading check. Contrast how Minoans and Mycenaeans spread their power. Page 172. The Dark Ages of Greece. Not long after the end of the Trojan War, civilization in Greece collapsed. No one knows exactly why. Life went on, but poverty was everywhere. People no longer traded for food and other goods beyond Greece. They had to depend on what they could raise themselves. Some were forced to move to islands and to the western part of Asia Minor. They were so concerned with survival that they forgot the art of writing. These years, from the early 1100s BC to about 750 BC, have been called Greece's Dark Ages. Without writing, people had to depend on word of mouth to keep their traditions and history alive. Old traditions were remembered only in the myths that were told and retold. Greece's Dark Ages were not completely bleak. During this time, families gradually began to resettle in places where they could grow crops and raise animals. Some of these family farms may have developed into villages. When they chose where to build their farms, people favored places near rocky, protected hills. Here they built structures to protect them from attack. The name for such a fortified hill was Acropolis, meaning high city. After 800 BC, people in Greece began writing again. It was during this period that Homer is believed to have composed his epic about the Trojan War. Reading check. What happened during Greece's Dark Ages? Page 173. Eyewitness Technology, Temple of Artemis. The Temple of Artemis at Ephesus was the largest of all ancient Greek buildings. The temple was considered one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. In 1869, British archaeologist John Turtle Wood uncovered the remains of the temple. His discovery marked the first time an ancient Greek site had been excavated or uncovered. Ancient Greeks worshipped Artemis as the goddess of wild animals and the hunt. Top right picture. Ruins of the temple. Fragments of marble are all that remain of the Temple of Artemis located in present-day Turkey. Left side caption. A triangular area called a pediment topped the 2 end walls of Greek temples. The Temple of Artemis had a pediment decorated with statues of female warriors called Amazons. Top right caption. A giant statue of Artemis stood in an inner chamber of the temple. Bottom right caption. A carving of the head of Medusa, a legendary monster with snakes for hair, decorated the front of the temple. Bottom middle caption. The columns stood more than 60 feet high. They numbered 127 in all. Page 174. City-states develop. Historians believe that sometime around 750 BC, villages in a small area probably joined to form a city in the shadow of an acropolis. At that time, each city began to develop its own traditions and its own form of government and laws. Today, we call these tiny nations city-states. A city-state is not only a city, but also a separate independent state. Each city-state included a city and the villages and fields surrounding it. Hundreds of Greek city-states grew up, each more or less independent. Aristocracy, nobles rule. The earliest rulers of city-states were probably chieftains or kings who were military leaders. By the end of Greece's Dark Ages, most city-states were ruled by aristocrats, members of the rich and powerful families. Aristocrats controlled most of the good land. They could afford horses, chariots, and the best weapons to make themselves stronger than others. A new type of ruler. As the Greeks sailed to foreign ports trading olive oil, marble, and other products, the city-states became richer. A middle class of merchants and artisans developed. They wanted some say in the government of their cities. These people could not afford to equip themselves with horses and chariots for war. However, they could afford armor, swords, and spears. With these weapons, large groups of soldiers could fight effectively on foot. Gradually, military strength in the cities shifted from aristocrats to merchants and artisans. As a result of these changes, aristocratic governments were often overthrown and replaced by rulers called tyrants. A tyrant was a ruler who seized power by force. Tyrants were usually supported by the middle and working classes. Today, we think of tyrants as being cruel and violent. That was true of some Greek tyrants, but others ruled wisely and well. Reading check. What kind of ruler often replaced aristocratic governments? Page 175. Democracy in Greece. Eventually, the people of many city-states overthrew tyrants. Some of the cities adopted a form of government called democracy. In a democracy, citizens governed themselves. The city-state in which democracy was most fully expressed was Athens. About 594 BC, a wise Athenian leader called Solon won the power to reform the laws. Solon was well known for his fairness. His laws reformed both the economy and the government of Athens. One of his first laws canceled all debts and freed citizens who had been enslaved for having debts. Another law allowed any male citizen of Athens, aged 18 or older, to have a say in debating important laws. These laws and others allowed Athens to become the leading democracy of the ancient world. Not everyone living in ancient Athens benefited from democracy. Only about 1 in 5 Athenians was a citizen. To be a citizen, a man had to have an Athenian father and mother. Some of the people living in Athens were enslaved. These people did not take part in democracy, nor did women or men with non-citizen parents. Men who were citizens of Athens were free and self-governing. Reading check. Why did some Athenians benefit more from democracy than others?